Why is it so hard to let go of the idea of a pre-tribulation rapture? The most simple answer is we're actually forced to reevaluate our view of God. You see, many pre-trib teachers will say things like Jesus would never beat his bride before the wedding. So if you accept the idea that Jesus will let us go through persecution and that we will even have to lay down our life, then we have to reevaluate and even reform our view of a God that would allow that. Many of us have grown up in the faith under a very American gospel. And for many of us, our faith hasn't cost us very much. But there are Christians all throughout the world, and especially in the early church, that had a very different experience. They knew as soon as they were baptized, for example, that they were now enemies of the state. And even though we're getting tiny taste of persecution in America and in parts of Europe, it's not on the scale that we see in biblical times. So for a lot of us, our pastors have never even taught some of the hard sayings of Jesus. And if we read our Bibles, it's tempting to read over them and kind of stick with the happy coffee mug verses. But have you ever seen this verse on a coffee mug? Luke 14:27 says, "Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." You see, another big problem with a lot of American modern preaching is verses like this are called works salvation or works gospel. Anytime you try to read a verse to people that are acquainted with that kind of preaching, they're going to say you're trying to earn your salvation. And so many of us have actually been preconditioned against the truth that we just can't receive it. But if we really take a look at the New Testament with fresh eyes, we're going to see that the early church apostles were actually overjoyed to be able to suffer for Jesus. And that is so different than our American mindset. Listen to what Acts 5:41 says. It says, "Then they left the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were worthy to suffer dishonor for the name." Whereas in American Christianity, we're hearing that if we're worthy, God will have us skip suffering. It's the exact opposite of what we see in the New Testament. Listen to what Paul says in Philippians 1:29. He says, "For it has been granted to you that for the sake of Christ, you should not only believe in him, but also suffer for his sake." In a lot of popular preaching, the only thing that's ever emphasized is believing in Jesus, praying a prayer of salvation. And it's not that that's not important, but that is not the end of the journey. 1 Peter 4:12-13 says, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you, but rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed." 2 Timothy 2:12 says, "If we endure, we will also reign with him. If we deny him, he will also deny us." So again, that is not a concept that we hear very often. So when somebody says that in the tribulation, we have to resist the mark of the beast, we have to resist the Antichrist, people believe that that's something strange, but that is something that is present in the entire Christian life. Luke 9:26 says, "For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words, of him will the Son of Man be ashamed when he comes in his glory and the glory of the Father and of the holy angels." So we have got to renew our mind and recalibrate our thinking completely. It is very likely that in our lifetime, we are going to move into a time period where our Christianity will cost us something. And the Bible already warns us, many people will fall away because they're not going to be ready. Listen to Revelation 3:5. It says, "The one who conquers will be clothed thus in white garments, and I will never blot his name out of the book of life. I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels." So we have to start training ourselves to think of the prize in the long term, and that is eternity with Jesus. And we have to have the attitude that we are willing to give up anything on this earth, including our own life, to spend eternity with him. And it is so important that we develop deep spiritual roots. Because if we don't, Matthew 13:20-21 describes what will happen. It says, "As for what was sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures for a while. And when tribulation or persecution arises on account of the word, immediately he falls away." That's my concern and fear for a lot of people when I'm reading the comments. Their mind is not renewed to the realities of what Jesus is already asking of us. And they're in danger of falling away when persecution comes because their mind is not set to endure. Matthew 24:9-10 says, "Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another." Have you ever asked yourself why that's going to happen? And could it be because people simply are not ready? 1 Timothy 4:1 says, "Now the Spirit expressly says that in latter times some will depart from the faith, devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and teachings of demons." I try to be careful about what I call a doctrine of demons, but I do have a real concern about this mega feel-good Christianity that bears little resemblance to the actual Word of God. So I think at the end of the day, no matter what your rapture position is, as long as you have internalized the words of Jesus and you believe them and you're ready to obey them, I think you'll be fine. But I just see far too many people in the comment section expressing beliefs about Christianity that are not biblical whatsoever, and most of them have something to do with God loving us too much to let us suffer tribulation, when the entire New Testament is packed not only with exhortations for us to be ready for tribulation, but also examples and case studies of people that went through tribulation and they rejoiced. And it's not new to the New Testament. We see it in the Old Testament with the prophets. They were often persecuted. And so my plea for everyone isn't so much about, again, what your prophecy positions are. It's just really about, if you believe we're living in the end times in any capacity, even if the second coming is 50 years away, just know that things might heat up and they might get scary. And you just have to have the mindset that I will endure. I will not give up on my faith no matter what it costs me. Even if there's pain involved, even if there's loss involved, even if there's sacrifice involved, I'm not giving up on Jesus no matter what. If you have that mindset, that is the most important thing. So let me know if you guys have any questions. God bless you guys and have a great day.